Nahi verena verani samantidha kudachanang averena cha samanti esa dhammo sanantano. Because hatreds never cease here through the use of hatred, but they cease through the use of benevolence. This is an eternal truth. Our subject here is verani, which is neuter nominative plural. And our main verb is samanti, which here has been elided or run together with the word idha. Idha means here, specifically here in this world, in this life. And samanti, as we've encountered before, means to cease. But we should also notice that at the beginning of this verse, we have a na. This verb is negated. So hatreds do not cease here. And then we have this word kudachanang. This is really the indefinite form of the word kuda, which means at what time, when. So this indefinite form, kudachanang, means at any time, ever. So we actually have a few options when we translate this. We can translate it just as we did here. Truths do not cease here ever. Or we could put na with kudachanang and say hatreds cease here never. Or hatreds never cease here. The meaning is the same. This is sort of an aesthetic or poetic decision. We also have this word verena, which is the instrumental form, the instrumental singular form of verang. And the instrumental, of course, means by the use of. So, to be very literal, hatreds never cease here through the use of hatred or by means of hatred. Then we have this little particle he. He is tying this back to the previous two verses. In verse 4, we are told that the hatred of those who do not bear a grudge ceases. And verse 3 tells us the opposite of that. And this verse is explaining why. Because hatred cannot be used to calm, to pacify, to end hatred. Moving on to the next line, averena cha samanti. This cha is what the Pali English Dictionary calls disjunctive. So this is a but. The main verb stays the same. I should have said that it is the third person plural, present active indicative. And the subject is the same. It's not repeated here. It's still verani, but hatreds cease averena. Now this is clearly verena negated with our negating or what they call in Greek, the alpha privative. Sometimes you'll hear this translated as non-hatred. But that in English really does not capture what this word means. When we say non-hatred, that genus could include not liking, but not hating. Averena, and every time we see this negating we should understand the opposite of. So this is not simply non-hatred. This is the opposite of hatred. Hatred cease through the use of the opposite of hatred. Now, we have a word for the opposite of hatred, and we can just use that word, benevolence. There is a case to be made that non-hatred is technically correct, possibly in an etymological way, showing us how the Pali word is formed. But the meaning in English isn't the same. So that's why I would vote to use a different word there. And then an important observation is made by the Buddha. Esa dhammo sanantano. Esa is a demonstrative pronoun. It is masculine nominative singular. This esa is actually going with the previous part of this verse. And then we'll notice there is no finite verb here. So we have an equational sentence, sometimes called a nominal sentence. This statement that came before, this verse up until that point, is, and then we have dhammo sanantano. Sanantano is an adjective meaning forever or eternal. And then we have Dhammo. Dhammo, again, probably better known to many people as Dharma. has a huge array of meanings, and I think here the best one is just truth. Someone might say, well, shouldn't a truth always be eternal? I would answer that by saying that I think the Buddha is trying to point out that this is not tied to some specific point or culture. It will always be true, no matter what. And actually, there's a sense here where if we just use logic, if we just use reason, we can understand. Obviously, if we are dealing with hatred and we add hatred, it's not going to make it go away. We're just adding more of the same. But as with all of the Buddha's teachings, we certainly can ponder that. We can use reason to help us understand the meaning here, but we have to experience this. For all of the Buddha's teachings, it is often said, come and see, participate, do. And my personal experience is this is very true. And this is definitely a path to liberation.